Caught in the act, BBQ party exposed my cheating wife neighbor, TitleCaught. Her pregnant revenge, a summer BBQ in the suburbs, was supposed to be a celebration. But when my neighbor raised his glass and bragged that he had gotten my wife pregnant, the party turned into a battleground. I didn't just lose trust that day, I started plotting revenge that would burn hotter than the grill. On a sunny weekend in a quiet American neighborhood, a backyard BBQ spirals into chaos when a husband's worst nightmare comes true. His neighbor brags publicly about an affair with his wife and even claims she's carrying his child. Humiliation turns to fury as betrayal rips through the family. But instead of collapsing, he begins a carefully planned revenge that shakes the entire community. The perfect BBQ THE smell of grilled ribs and smoky charcoal lingered in the air, mingling with the sound of laughter, the crack of beer cans opening, and the squeals of kids running through sprinklers on the front lawn. It was the kind of suburban summer day people like to brag about on Instagram, perfect blue skies, neighbors gathering without tension, the American flag swaying lazily from my porch. I had planned this BBQ for weeks. My wife, Emily, had gone overboard with the deco red and white checkered tablecloths, bowls of fresh coleslaw, trays of corn on the cob dusted with paprika. We had invited nearly the entire cul-de-sac. It wasn't just about the food. It was about building community, about showing everyone that our marriage, our home, our lives were solid. At least. That's what I thought. I stood by the grill, tongs in hand, sweat dampening the back of my shirt as I flipped burgers. Emily moved among the guests like a hostess born for the spotlight. She had always been the social one, with her auburn hair perfectly curled, her sundress hugging her curves, her laugh just loud enough to draw attention without being obnoxious. She smiled at everyone, especially Kyle, my neighbor, my so-called friend. He was leaning against the fence, beer in hand, telling some exaggerated story to a small group of men. His eyes kept flicking toward Emily in a way that made my gut twist, but I shoved the feeling down. I told myself it was nothing. After all, Kyle had always been a flirt. He flirted with everyone's wives. That was just his personality. Emily laughed at something he said, her hand brushing his arm for just a second too long. I clenched the tongs harder, nearly dropping a patty onto the coals. "Man, these burgers smell amazing," said Ryan, another neighbor, slapping me on the back. "You've outdone yourself this time." Yeah, I forced a smile, trying to shake off the unease. Just trying to keep the tradition alive. Ryan grabbed a plate and moved on, leaving me staring across the yard. Emily was pouring Kyle another drink. He leaned in close, whispering something in her ear that made her lips twitch nervously before she forced a laugh. My jaw tightened. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe this was just me being jealous. But then, deep down, I knew. The thing about betrayal is that your body senses it long before your brain is willing to admit it. The party carried on for hours. Kids started between lawn chairs, sticky with popsicle juice. Music thumped from a Bluetooth speaker on the deck, bottles and plates piled up. I should have been proud. Instead, I was restless, keeping one eye on the grill and the other on Emily and Kyle. Then Kyle clinked his beer bottle with a spoon. The chatter quieted as he stood up, wobbling just slightly. "All right, everyone," he said, raising his drink high. "I'd like to make a toast." I looked at him, puzzled. Nobody had asked for a toast. Emily froze, her face draining of color. Kyle grinned. "To my boy here," he pointed at me, swaying slightly, "for being the best damn neighbor a guy could ask for." And to Emily, his grin widened, "for being the best thing that ever happened to me." Laughter rippled through the crowd, awkward at first. I laughed too, tight and uncomfortable, thinking it was just another one of his bad jokes. But then he leaned closer to Emily. put an arm around her shoulder and added, "And hey, buddy." I figured now's as good a time as any to share the big news. The yard fell silent. My stomach dropped. "What news?" I asked, my voice harder than I meant. Kyle smirked, looking me dead in the eye. "She's carrying my baby." The words hit like a punch to the chest. The crowd gasped. Someone muttered, "No way." I stared at Emily, waiting for her to scream, to laugh, to deny it, but she didn't. She froze. Her lips parted, her eyes wide, panic flickering across her face. My hands went cold around the tongs. For a moment, the only sound was the crackle of the grill and the buzzing of a fly near the potato salad. Then whispers erupted. "Did you hear that? He's serious? Oh my God." Emily shook her head weakly, stammering, "That's not true. He's drunk." But it was too late. The look in her eyes told me everything. I stood there in front of everyone, my neighbors, my friends, my community, humiliated, betrayed, a fool. My heart hammered against my ribs, the fire from the grill blurring in my vision. Kyle laughed, raised his beer again, and shouted, "To new beginnings." The crowd didn't cheer. They just stared at me, waiting, watching Dot, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. The man they thought was broken, the husband they pitied, wasn't going to stay that way. Kyle thought he had won. Emily thought she could keep her secret hidden, but they had no idea who they had just awakened. Neighbors toast. The silence after Kyle's words hung heavy in the air, thicker than the smoke rising from the grill. I could hear the faint buzzing of a mosquito near my ear, the clinking of a child's juice box straw being tapped against a plastic cup, small sounds amplified in the sudden hush. Everyone was watching me. I felt my throat tighten, my chest constricting as if an iron band had been wrapped around it. My first instinct was to deny, to laugh it off, to protect the facade of a perfect marriage in front of these people whose opinions, until now, had mattered so much. But as I turned toward Emily, I saw her face. Her eyes darted, searching for an escape. Her hands twisted the hem of her sundress. Her mouth opened, but no words came. That tiny hesitation, that pause, was louder than anything Kyle had said. "Emily," I forced out, my voice rough. "Say something." She blinked rapidly, cheeks flushing red. "He's drunk, Daniel. He doesn't know what he's saying." But Kyle's laugh, low, smug, triumphant, drowned her out. "Oh, come on," he slurred, wobbling slightly but with eyes sharp as knives. "Don't play innocent now. Everyone knows you've been spending a lot of time at my place. Morning jogs, late night chats. Hell, I didn't even think you'd keep the pregnancy under wraps this long." Gasps rippled across the yard. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another muttered, "I knew something was going on." I clenched the tongs in my hand so tightly the metal bit into my palm. My vision blurred for a second, the edges darkening, rage surging like a wave threatening to drown me. I wanted to smash the grill, throw the beer bottles, lunge across the lawn and slam my fist into Kyle's smirking face, but I didn't. Instead, I set the tongs down slowly on the table beside the grill, my movements deliberate, controlled, because I realized something. This wasn't just about me. This was about the show, the spectacle. Kyle had chosen this moment to humiliate me, to make me a fool in front of everyone. He wanted me to explode. Not yet. "Enough, Kyle," I said, my voice low, steady, though my insides felt like they were on fire. "You've had too much to drink." Kyle raised his beer in mock salute. "Maybe, but drunk men tell sober truths. Isn't that how the saying goes?" More laughter. Those time it was uncomfortable, forced. The neighbors shifted uneasily, their smiles faltering. Nobody wanted to take a side, not yet. But I could see it in their eyes. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Emily tried again, her voice cracking. "Daniel, please, save it." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The steel in my tone shut her up. I turned back to the grill, flipped a burger as if nothing had happened, and forced myself to smile at Ryan, who was staring at me like I'd grown horns. "Burgers are ready," I said. My voice was calm, controlled, but inside I was already plotting. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze. Conversations were stilted, awkward. People avoided my eyes, speaking in hushed tones. The BBQ that had been meant as a celebration turned into a theater of betrayal. Emily stayed close to me, hovering, whispering excuses I ignored. Kyle strutted around like he'd won some kind of prize, basking in the whispers and sideways glances. When the last guest left, leaving behind paper plates and half-drained bottles, I finally turned to Emily. She was pacing the kitchen, wringing her hands. "Daniel, you have to believe me." "He's lying." I don't know why he would say something like that, because it's true. I cut in, my voice sharp. She froze, eyes wide. No, it's not. Don't." I stepped closer, my face inches from hers. "Don't insult me by pretending." I saw the way you looked at him. I saw the way you froze when he said it. He didn't make that up, Emily. Nobody could make that up. Her lips trembled. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." For a moment, she collapsed into a chair, covering her face with her hands. And in that silence, I got my confirmation. She didn't deny it. Not really doubt the betrayal was real. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every smile she'd given Kyle, every late shift she claimed she had at work, every jog she said she was too tired to take with me, but somehow had energy for with him. The puzzle pieces slid into place, and the picture that emerged made me sick. Emily thought this would break me. Kyle thought he had humiliated me beyond repair, but they were wrong, because in that sleepless darkness, my rage cooled into something sharper, a plan. They had set the stage for betrayal. I would set the stage for revenge. Public humiliation. The next morning, I walked outside to grab the paper from the driveway. Normally, it was a ritual I enjoyed, coffee in hand, crisp morning air, the quiet hum of sprinklers from neighboring lawns. But today, I felt the weight of eyes. Mrs. Donnelly across the street, usually cheerful with her little dog, gave me a tight smile and quickly looked away. Mr. Haskins, watering his roses, paused just a beat too long before nodding at me. Whispers weren't just whispers anymore, they were daggers. The humiliation from yesterday hadn't ended at the party. It had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. By the time I reached the porch, Emily was already in the kitchen, pacing, her face pale from another sleepless night. She looked up, searching my face for softness, forgiveness, maybe even the man I used to be. But that man was gone. "They're all talking, Daniel," she whispered. Her voice cracked, heavy with guilt, or maybe just fear of exposure. "Kyle's a liar. You know that, right? You have to trust me." I set the paper down on the counter without looking at her. "Yesterday, when he said it, you didn't deny it?" Not fast enough, not strong enough. Tears welled in her eyes. I was shocked, embarrassed. "You can't seriously think I slammed my hand on the counter." The sound echoed through the kitchen, making her flinch. "Don't play games with me, Emily. I know what I saw." Everyone knows what they saw. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. Just silence. And silence was louder than any confession. That evening, I stopped at the local gas station. Inside, two guys from down the block were talking near the coffee station. "Did you hear about Daniel's wife?" one whispered. "Yeah, Kyle knocked her up, right? Man, that's brutal." "Poor guy. Whole neighborhood saw it happen." They didn't notice me until I was right behind them. Both went pale, stammering apologies, and scurried out. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The damage was already done. Kyle's little toast hadn't just been a drunken joke, it had branded me. In the eyes of my neighbors, my friends, my entire community, I was the husband who couldn't keep his wife. The man who got played by his own neighbor. Public humiliation. That was his first strike. That night, Emily tried again. She followed me into the bedroom, her voice trembling. "Daniel, please. You know I love you. You know I'd never hurt you like this. Kyle's just trying to stir trouble. He drinks too much, you know that. Please." She reached for me, but I stepped back. Her hand hung in the air, empty. "You think I don't see it?" I said coldly. "The way you smile at him, the late nights, the excuses. Do you really think I'm that stupid?" Her lips quivered. She turned away, wiping her eyes. "You don't understand." "No," I cut in. "You don't understand. You've humiliated me in front of everyone. That doesn't just go away." And as she sobbed softly into her hands, I lay down on the far edge of the bed, staring into the dark dot. My humiliation had been public. So would theirs. The next few days blurred into a haze of awkward encounters. Neighbors avoided me or stared too long. Kyle, on the other hand, strutted down the street like a peacock, beer in hand, always smirking. He knew exactly what he'd done, but what he didn't know, what Emily didn't know, was that I had already begun watching, listening, learning. Every weakness has a crack. Every liar slips up eventually, and when they did, I'd be ready. The aftermath. The house felt different after the barbecue, colder, even in the middle of July. When the air conditioning hummed against the sticky heat, it carried a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. Emily tiptoed around me for days, her voice softer, her presence smaller, as if afraid of setting me off. She cooked my favorite meals, left little notes on the counter, even folded my laundry before I could get to it. It was the behavior of someone desperate to erase a mistake, but the more she tried, the more obvious it became that something had happened. And Kyle, he was louder than ever. Every time I pulled into the driveway after work, I'd see him leaning against his pickup truck, chatting with another neighbor, always grinning. Sometimes Emily would glance out the window, then retreat quickly when she realized I'd notice. I couldn't take it anymore. 3 nights after the party, I confronted her. She was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. I snatched it out of her hands before she could lock it. "Daniel, what the hell?" she shouted, standing up. I ignored her protests and scrolled quickly. At first, it looked clean, too clean. No suspicious texts, no late-night calls. But then, I noticed the hidden folder in her photo gallery. "Password protected. Open it," I demanded, her face drained of color. "It's nothing, just open IT." She hesitated, tears forming in her eyes. Then slowly, she typed the code. My chest tightened as the images appeared. Emily and Kyle, selfies in his truck. Drinks at the bar down the road. Her head on his shoulder. His hand on her thigh. And one photo, one that made my blood boil, her kissing him outside what looked like his garage. I felt the world tilt under me. "You lied," I whispered, my hands shaking as I held the phone. "All this time, you lied to my face." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Daniel, I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I snapped, hurling the phone onto the couch. "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. This is betrayal." She reached for me, desperate, trembling. "Please, I still love you. It didn't mean anything. He doesn't mean anything." I laughed, bitter and broken. He meant enough for you to sneak around, to humiliate me in front of everyone. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. But I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Not anymore. The next day, I stayed home from work. My mind was a storm, anger, humiliation, heartbreak, all crashing into one another. But beneath it all, a clarity began to form. I couldn't undo what had happened. I couldn't erase the whispers in the neighborhood, the smirk on Kyle's face, the betrayal in Emily's eyes, but I could make them pay. Started small, watching, listening. Kyle left his garage door half open most mornings. I noticed he was always on his phone, always talking about money. Sometimes I'd catch phrases, loan shark, late payment, I'll get it to you next week. He was reckless, sloppy. Emily, meanwhile, was restless. She texted constantly, always with her phone face down on the table. She thought she was being careful. She WS in single quotes. Every move they made, every lie they told, I filed away. Because revenge wasn't just about anger. It was about timing. And my time was coming. That night, as Emily slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling again. She thought she could cry her way out of this. Kyle thought he could brag his way into power, but I wasn't the broken man they thought I was. I was patient. I was deliberate. And soon I'd be dangerous. Breaking point by the 5th night after the barbecue. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore. Emily moved through the house like a ghost, silent, tearful, always trying to catch my eye, always trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. The betrayal hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had gutted everything but left the ashes behind. That evening, she placed a plate of roast chicken in front of me, her eyes pleading. I thought we could sit down together like old times. I stared at the food, then at her. Old times? My voice was flat. The old times died the moment you let him touch you. Her eyes filled instantly with tears. Daniel, please. I've told you. Don't. I pushed the plate away. Don't give me another excuse. Don't try to cry your way out of this. She stood frozen, shaking, clutching the edge of the table as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. I took a deep breath, my hands steady, my mind cold. Get out. Her mouth fell open. What? You heard me, I said, standing slowly. Pack your things. Get out of my house. She stumbled back, tears spilling down her cheeks. Daniel, please. I have nowhere to go. Go to him, I snapped. Go to your lover. I'm sure he'll welcome you with open arms. After all, he's the father of your child, isn't he? She flinched as though I'd struck her. I don't even know if that's true. Then you've made an even bigger mess than I thought. For a long moment, we stared at each other. Across the room. Her face was red, streaked with tears, her chest heaving. Mine was stone, cold. UNMOVABLA. Finally, she whispered, You'll regret this. No, I said quietly. You will. She packed in silence, dragging a suitcase through the hallway while I sat in the living room, staring at the darkened television. I didn't offer to help. I didn't even stand up. The door slammed shut behind her, and for the first time in days, the house was quiet. Empty, yes. Lonely, yes, but quiet. I should have felt broken. I should have felt like a man who had just lost his marriage, his partner, his home life. But instead, I felt something different. Relief, and beneath it, something darker. Resolve. Later. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat at the kitchen table with Emily's phone in front of me. She had been careless in her rush to leave. I scrolled through her texts with Kyle, the ones she hadn't deleted. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. You're so much better than him. Each word was gasoline on the fire burning inside me. But then I saw another thread, one that made me pause. Kyle wasn't just bragging. He was reckless. I need cash fast. I'm good for it. Don't tell anyone, but if this gets out, I'm screwed. 1 more month, and I'll be clear. My eyes narrowed. Debt. Desperation. Kyle wasn't invincible. He wasn't the king he thought. He had cracks. And cracks meant opportunity. I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and let the pieces rearrange themselves in my mind. Kyle had humiliated me. Emily had betrayed me. Together, they had tried to break me, but they had underestimated me. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. This wasn't about divorce papers or shouting matches. This was about war, and I was done being the man on the defensive. From this moment forward, I wasn't the victim, I was the executioner. The planned house was silent without Emily, but silence wasn't loneliness anymore. It was clarity. I poured another drink, spread out Kyle's texts, and began connecting dots like a detective with a murder. Bored, debt, gambling, late payments, desperation. Kyle's weakness wasn't just Emily. His weakness was money. And desperate. Men make mistakes. I began watching him. Not in the obvious sense, no binoculars behind curtains, just subtle observation. Every morning, his garage door was cracked open as he argued on the phone. Every evening, strange cars stopped by his driveway. For short visits, he was jumpy, restless, reckless. I started keeping a journal. Times, license plates, patterns. Within a week, I had enough to know. Kyle was in deep trouble. And if I played it right, his trouble could become his downfall. But I wasn't satisfied with just exposing him. I wanted to take everything, his reputation, his pride, even Emily. I wanted him to choke on the same humiliation he had forced down my throat. And to do that, I needed patience. I needed a trap. Turning the tables, I knocked on Kyle's door one Friday evening. A six-pack in hand and a smile plastered on my face. He answered, clearly surprised, though his smugness never faltered. Well, look who it is. Didn't expect you to come around, buddy. I handed him the beer. Figured we should clear the air. No hard feelings, right? He laughed, clapped me on the shoulder, and invited me in. Inside, his house was a mess empty. Bottles, piles of unpaid bills, the stench of sweat and stale beer. He tried to hide it, shoving papers into a drawer, but I noticed everything. We sat, drank, and talked. I played the part of the broken husband, shrugging off Emily's betrayal, pretending to confide in him. I even let him brag. She came to. Man, he said, smirking. Said you didn't satisfy her anymore. Said she needed a real man. My knuckles whitened around the beer bottle, but I forced a laugh. Guess she made her choice. Instead, I memorized every detail. His arrogance, his desperation, his trust in me. And when he stumbled into the bathroom, I slipped my phone into his office and snapped photos of his desk credit card bills. Foreclosure warnings, a laptop left unlocked with incriminating emails. By the time I left, Kyle thought I was his friend again, but in reality, I had just armed myself with the first round of bullets, setting the trap over the next 2 weeks. I played my role perfectly. With Emily, I acted distant but civil, letting her think I might forgive her. She called constantly, begged to meet, begged for a second chance. Sometimes I answered, sometimes I didn't. Each conversation I recorded. With Kyle, I became his confidant. He told me about his debts, his enemies, his big plans that always seemed to fall through. I listened, nodded, offered sympathy, and quietly collected every word. At night, I pieced together a file, photos of bills, screenshots of texts, recordings of Emily admitting the affair. A weapon, carefully sharpened. Then I set the bait. I offered Kyle help with his money. Problems. Told him I knew a guy who could get him a loan if he just handed over a few documents. He jumped at it, too blinded by desperation to see the trap. What he didn't know was that every signature, every document he gave me was copied, stored, ready to be used against him. All I needed was the perfect stage to unveil it, and I knew. Exactly when another barbecue. The community turns, I hosted it 2 weeks later. Same yard, same grill, same neighbors, but this time I had a plan. Emily showed up uninvited, dressed up as if to remind everyone she was still the perfect hostess. Kyle swaggered in with his usual arrogance. Already half-dashed drunk. The whispers started before the first burger hit the grill. People still remembered the last BBQ, the scandal, the humiliation. They came hungry not just for food, but for drama, and I was about to feed them. Halfway through the evening, I tapped a spoon against my beer bottle. "I'd like to thank everyone for coming," I said, smiling. "And I'd like to share a little something." I turned on the projector I had set. Up against the side of the house, the first photo appeared, Emily kissing Kyle outside his garage. Gasps erupted. Emily went pale, shaking her head frantically. "Daniel, don't." The second slide screenshots of their text. "You're so much better than him." "Last night was amazing." Gasps turned into murmurs. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably. Then came Kyle's bills, his threats from lenders, his drunken voice recordings bragging about screwing Emily while planning to scam his creditors. The yard was silent except for the audio of Kyle slurring, "He's a fool. By the time he knows what hit him, I'll be long gone with everything." The BBQ of revenge, the crowd turned. Mrs. Donnelly shook her head, muttering, "Shameful." Ryan crossed his arms, glaring at Kyle. The same neighbors who once pitied me now pitied no one but themselves for ever trusting him. Emily sobbed, begging me to stop. Kyle staggered forward, shouting, "He set me up. This is all fake." But the evidence was undeniable. I looked at him, calm, collected. "Funny, Kyle, you didn't think it was fake when you bragged about it at my last barbecue?" Laughter erupted from the crowd, bitter and sharp. Kyle's face twisted in rage. He lunged at me, but Ryan and another neighbor held him back. Someone shouted, "Get out of here!" The mighty Kyle, humiliated. Emily exposed, and me. I was no longer the fool. I was the man who had taken control. Collapse within days. Everything unraveled for them. Kyle was reported for fraud and tax evasion thanks to the copies I had handed over anonymously. Police cars parked in front of his house, hauling out boxes of evidence. Neighbors whispered not about me anymore, but about him. Emily tried to crawl back, sobbing about mistakes and second chances, but nobody listened. Not even me. She became the woman who lost her marriage and her reputation in one blow. Kyle became the neighbor everyone hated, the criminal, the fool, and me. I became something else. Not the betrayed husband, not the victim, but the man who had turned humiliation into power. My revenge, my freedom. Weeks later, I stood in my backyard again. The grill smoked, the smell of ribs filling the air, but this time I was alone. No Emily, no Kyle, no whispers. Just me.